Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the special operation that took place on the borderlands between Russia and Ukraine. If you remember, I'll remind you one more time that yesterday the Ukrainian battalion under support of tank group and armored vehicles group crossed the border. First of all, they made artillery attack against the small border checkpoint, and after that they managed to penetrate the defense orders of the Russians in this area to force the Russians detachment forces to step back in direction of the military base that located on the northeast of the border. And as a result of a few hours storming operation, the Ukrainians managed to capture a few settlements on the border like Kozinka, like Glotova, and like Goropodol, these three settlements. And today, for example, we received the first confirmation, or at least the first video about that. If you remember, as I told you, the Ukrainians used around battalion of their forces. So as you can see, this is the convoy of the Ukrainian forces. As you can see, this is a very large convoy that starts somewhere on the horizon and moves to another horizon. So as we discussed, up to battalion with a lot of with support of different types of light armored vehicles. So that those forces crossed the border. Later, the Russians sent the reserves and reinforcements to push the Ukrainians back. And as a result of first hours of clashes, the Russians were trying to attack the Ukrainians in the settlement by the name of Goropodol from the north. And through the fields, the Russians were attacking and trying to push the Ukrainians in the area of Glotova. So there was like the first battles between the forces. The Russians are saying that at least they haven't provided us any information about the losses from the Russian side. But when talking about the Ukrainians, based on the Russians' report, the Ukrainians lost 39 soldiers during that operation. And somewhere by the 9 p.m. of the local time, the Russians reported that as a result of fierce fightings and counter-terrorist operation, they managed to push the Ukrainians back and to clear those towns like Goropodol and Glotova, and as a result, the Ukrainians were forced to step back in direction of the settlement Kozinka, the settlement that everything has begun with. So that was the situation, and the Ukrainians pushed back. But some sources are saying that, for example, today, this morning, the Russians are saying that they still continue doing some kind of clearing operation in this area. The governor of this area asked civilians and people not to return back home, and probably during this day the Russians will continue doing counter-offensive operations. So as you can see, the Russians couldn't return control over the territories during the 24 hours. Probably they will continue today. Furthermore, some sources are saying that some Russian sources are saying that Ukrainians were forced to step back on their side of the border. Other sources are saying that they heard like the sounds of battle in the village Mokraya Orlovka. And this village, as you can see, is located a little bit to the northeast from the bridge that Ukrainians established control during their commandos operation. So probably some forces were blocked in this area. The forces were split into many parts, and probably the Ukrainians lost their possibilities to evacuate from this area, and that's why they took a decision to, let's call it like, to split their forces, and some forces took a decision to step back using the northern road and to return on the territory of Ukraine through the settlement by the name of Popovka, so in this direction. And the Russians sent some forces after them to capture them, or to push them, or to kill as much as possible soldiers. Furthermore, the Russians reported that Ukrainians have already moved all their armored vehicles from the borderlands in direction of Ukrainian territory, and currently there are no more armored vehicles on the territory of Russian Federation. Probably there are still some soldiers in the vicinity of Kozinka and the border town, and the Russians have blocked them. Anyway, all this information we are making based on the Russian sources when talking about the Western sources and the Ukrainian sources. And if you are able to take a look at the Western sources map, you see that most of them have updated this territory, like deployment map, like deep state map, and they shows that still Kozinka, Glotova and Goropodol are under Ukrainian control. Furthermore, when talking about the situation objectively, we still haven't received any photo or video confirmation of these territories, of the settlements and so on, and the only proof that we can rely on is the picture of the Russian soldiers on this detachment checkpoint, but for now we still haven't received this picture. And one more time, the governor of this area asked people not to return back to these settlements and their houses during today and probably maybe during tomorrow. Furthermore, later at night there was some kind of missiles and drone exchange between Kharkiv and Belgorod. The Russian sources reported that Ukrainians made like a drone attack against the headquarters of special forces of FSB in Belgorod. As you can see, there is like a lot of cars, a lot of special units that the main job is to fight with the fire and so on. And the Russians and the Ukrainians confirmed that there were few explosions in Kharkiv. Probably the Russians were attacking the headquarters of Ukrainian forces who were responsible for that commandos operation in the Belgorod region. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.